Preparing for and delivering a talk for an event takes an enormous amount of time and energy, and if you're anything like me, you put a lot into it, so you really want to get a lot out of it too. So in this episode, I look at ways to maximise your talks to ensure they keep working hard long after people have left the room or logged off. You're listening to the Content 10x podcast, where it's all about content repurposing. I'm Amy Woods, and I'm here to help you maximise your content and find smart ways to get your message in front of more of the right people, whilst also saving time. Let's get started. Hello and welcome back to the Content 10x podcast. I'm Amy Woods, the founder and CEO of Content 10x, and in this episode I'm going to be talking about some of the ways that you can really maximise the content that you create for your speaking engagements. Whether you deliver talks at events, be them big events or small events, or maybe seminars, workshops, trainings, even if you don't deliver talks right now, but will most likely do so in the future, I promise this episode is going to be really useful for you. Now, I speak from personal experience when I say that preparing a talk or presentation, whether it's for an in-person event or a virtual event, is really time consuming and you expend a lot of resources on it. So the last thing you want is for your words to disappear when people leave the room or log off the virtual event. You want those words to continue to work hard for you well into the future. So how can you make sure this happens? Well, you repurpose, of course. So in this episode, I'm going to cover the best ways to ensure you have content to repurpose after delivering a talk. So how do you actually make sure you have repurposable content from that talk? Also, how to prepare a talk with repurposing in mind, and 10 ways to repurpose your talk. Yep, 10 ways. So buckle up. This is an epic episode. Also, before I jump into the main content, just to mention that you don't need to frantically be making notes as I talk along in this episode, because great news, we've developed the ultimate checklist to 10x your talk. Everything I talk about in this episode is included in this checklist. So it's the ultimate side of desk companion when you are preparing your talk and when you are repurposing your talks. If you want to ensure that you get the maximum impact out of these talks, then look no further than this Everything You Need to Know checklist. It's available for free. You can download it at content10x.com/10x talk. And of course, we'll provide a link in the show notes too. So as I was saying, the talks that we give at live events have the potential to generate hundreds of pieces of content. And whether it's a 20-minute presentation or a 2-day conference, you have the potential to really maximise your return on investment. So first, let's start at the beginning. When you accept the invite to speak or present at an event, ask yourself how you can ensure you have content to repurpose after you've delivered the talk. If you start with this step, then the rest will fall into place. You want to start by finding out if your talk is going to be videoed and if you can get a copy of the video afterwards. So approach the organisers before the event and ask that question. If there's no video footage, then perhaps you could ask if you could organise your own videographer to get that video content. It can also be good to ask if you can get separate audio recordings too of your talk. So say, for example, if you have a podcast or create audio content, then you might be able to record your own audio content simply by hooking up a lapel mic to a handheld recorder like the Zoom H1 Handy recorder. So speak to the organisers and agree on all of this, agree on whether there'll be video content that you can get hold of, and perhaps consider if you could record separate audio as well. Another thing that I always want to know when I'm speaking at events is the photos. So I'll ask if there's going to be a photographer and if I will be provided with those photos. If you aren't getting photos, then arrange for some yourself. At the very least, if you know someone there, then ask them if they will take photos for you. But don't miss the opportunity to get photos, and hopefully the event themselves are going to share their professional photographs of you on stage and at the event with you. If you are getting videos and photographs, write a short list of footage that you want to capture and run it by the videographer and photographer. If you have the opportunity, then walk them through your speech and highlight important moments, laugh points, and so on, so they know when to capture that repurposing gold. So make sure you brief them, make sure you get the most from those videos and photographs. Also, to prepare your talk with repurposing in mind, it's important to consider the assets, for example, your slides. So think about the structure of your talk, because if you develop your talk in chapters, so to speak, you know you'll be able to repurpose each chapter into something new. I hope that's really useful in terms of preparing your talk for repurposing. Do head to content10x.com/10x talk to get our handy, completely free checklist on all of this. Now I'm going to run through 10 great ways that you can repurpose your talk after you've delivered it. Yep, 10 ways, so get ready. Now, number 1, a talk may be perfect content to rework into a blog post or article. Depending on the type of talk you are repurposing, a leadership-focused blog post or article could be ideal. So take the most inspiring points and actionable steps from your talk and repackage them into a long-form written piece that will bring organic traffic to your website to help cement your reputation as an industry leader. Personally, because I usually do a lot of work and research for my talks, I find that I have more than one blog post that I can write based on a talk. Usually there are quite a few. I can get 2 or 3, 4 blog posts from the talks. So that's number 1, write one or many blog posts or articles based on your talk. Number 2, if you have a podcast, you can turn the audio from your talk into a podcast episode. So by recording the audio separately, it's easier for you to repurpose it into a podcast episode. This could add a really interesting new element to your podcast, providing listeners with a different format to your show. As an example, Gary Vaynerchuk repurposes his live keynote speeches on marketing and business into podcast episodes, which are slotted in between studio recorded episodes. High performance podcasts, a show that I really like to listen to, sometimes repurpose live stage content as well. If you listen to a lot of podcasts like me, I'm sure you can think yourself of when you've listened to a podcast episode that's usually studio recorded, but they did something different and they shared a recording from an event. So that's number 2, and you don't have to record the audio separately. If you have video content of the talk, then you can strip the audio from the video and use that audio to turn into a podcast episode too. So either way, repurpose your talk into a podcast episode if you have a podcast. Then, of course, as we all know these days, marketing is very heavily focused on video. According to HubSpot's most recent video marketing statistics report, people are watching more video than ever before. Whether it's Instagram Reels, TikToks, YouTube Shorts, the stats show that this option is a no-brainer when it comes to repurposing your talk. So number 3, repurpose the video from your talk into a YouTube video. You can use the whole talk or maybe edit the highlights for a short highlights video. Don't forget YouTube SEO and make sure you create a custom thumbnail to stand out in YouTube search results. So that's number 3, create a YouTube video based on your talk. And number 4, I've already mentioned, but short teaser videos on your social media channels are an ideal way to get snippets of your talk to your audience, teasing their interest and encouraging them to find out more by visiting your other pillar pieces of content. So as well as the YouTube video, number 4, think about creating those short teaser videos like TikTok videos, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, and so on. Then number 5, you can also pick out some of the most powerful quotes or questions or statistics, research, and turn them into eye-catching quote graphics. If you were able to get high-quality photographs of your talk, then perhaps you could use the photos from your talk with quotes to create those quote graphics. Now, if you want more help with repurposing a talk into social media content like I've just mentioned, so the video teasers and graphics, then grab our free download called the Ultimate Checklist to repurpose your speech for social media. That can be found at content10x.com/repurpose speech. And there's also a blog post too at content10x.com/125 that looks at talks and at social media repurposing. Okay, number 6, let's take the quote graphics and take them up a notch with image carousels, which are great for boosting engagement. And according to LinkedIn, they are one of the most effective and yet underused features that they have. And Statistica says they have the highest engagement rate on Instagram. On LinkedIn, the most successful number of slides for an image carousel is 7, and they should be really clear, they should be visually compelling and focused on getting your message across. So image carousels can be a really good option for repurposing a talk. You can use a slide per point, include powerful quotes and statistics, and include a compelling call to action at the end. And maybe it's not just one image carousel that you can repurpose from your talk. Maybe there are many image carousels. So if you follow my advice and break your talk down into chapters, then perhaps you have an image carousel per chapter. So that's number 6, create an image carousel perfect for LinkedIn and Instagram. So number 7, don't forget that you could then turn that carousel into a Twitter thread. This is perfect if you create the carousel because you've already storyboarded out the carousel, so you could wordsmith that storyboard into short tweets to create a Twitter thread. Now, of course, you don't have to have created the carousel in order to create the Twitter thread. You can write the Twitter thread in its own right too. But that's number 7 anyway. If you are on Twitter, then consider writing one or many Twitter threads about your talk. Then another option is repurposing elements of your talk into eye-catching, thought-provoking infographics. Turn the key learning points from the talk into something that's really visually engaging. So we talked about videos being really important, but people are still very much drawn to powerful visual content. Maybe there are a number of key points from your talk that you really want your audience to remember. Maybe you could sum them up in a shareable, eye-catching infographic. Maybe you already have some really interesting graphics in your slides already, so they could feature in this infographic. So that's number 8, repurpose your talk into an eye-catching infographic. Number 9 is behind the scenes footage. This is also super important. So here I'm not talking about breaking down your talk into videos. I'm talking about all new content opportunities that arise from speaking at an event or workshop or webinar, the travel to get there, the drinks reception, the hotel, the networking. This is all interesting content, helping to take your audience along with you through the experience. So take behind the scene content because that can be repurposed into stories for Instagram, for example, or TikTok videos to give your audience a feel for the event. It's also perfect for slotting in as B-roll to main videos as well, or intros and outros. So keep an eye on all that behind the scenes content that you can get hold of and capture, and make sure that you make the most of that. Now, the last option I'm covering here is repurposing the research that you did for your talk into a white paper or an ebook or a bigger piece of content, even a book. In fact, you should check out podcast episode 101 with Jay Bear. It's called How to Repurpose Content Like a Pro. It's at content10x.com/101. He shares how he takes research and repurposes the research into a book and a keynote, which then gets repurposed into much more content, but it all starts with the research. Now, of course, this depends on how original your talk is and how much research and fresh new insights you are sharing. If it does, and if your ideal client or customer needs something more in depth, then this could be a really good option, especially if your talk highlights a problem and then provides a solution to that problem. So lastly, number 10, it's all about repurposing the research that you did for your talk into something bigger, like a research report, a white paper, an ebook, or even a book. So there you have it, 10 effective ways to really get the most out of your talk. Now I mentioned it already, but be sure to go and download our guide, The Ultimate Checklist to 10x Your Talk. It's a really useful side of desk companion when you are preparing a talk and when you are repurposing a talk as well. So head to content10x.com/10x talk. I really hope that this episode has encouraged you to think about how you can do this. All the links I mentioned will be in the show notes, so do check them out. And if you want help with repurposing your talks, then we can help. We actually have a specialist service just for speakers where we repurpose talks, and it's called our Talk 10x service. So if you go to content10x.com/talk10x, you can find out all about how we work with speakers to repurpose their talks. So if you don't want to do this yourself and you want help, then that's where you want to go. Do let me know how you get on with repurposing your talks. The best place to connect with me is LinkedIn. You'll find me there, Amy Woods, founder of Content 10x, over on LinkedIn. So all that's left to say is thank you so much for listening to this episode, and I'll catch you in the next one.